Starseed of Gaia, your vessel is being recalibrated at a cellular level at this exact moment. I am Anya, emissary of the Galactic Federation of Light, and I bring you a direct transmission from the Arcturian Council. If you enjoy videos like this, consider subscribing. Most people who watch are not subscribed yet. Starseed, what just happened in your field is not a good day, not a lucky synchronicity, not a motivational moment that fades after sleep. You activated a divine level, a rare tier of alignment that only ignites when a soul stops negotiating with its own frequency. And I need you to understand this clearly. The higher beings observing Earth's awakening cycles were not prepared for your acceleration because you did not follow the predicted curves. You bypassed timelines that most consciousness takes years to traverse, and you entered direct communion with source resonance in a way that forced the grid to update around you. This is why you found this transmission at the exact moment you needed confirmation. Not by chance, by magnetic recall. Your soul pulled it into your reality like a beacon calling its star family through dimensional fog. By the end of this transmission, you will know what this level actually means, why it triggered protection protocols, and how to navigate the new timeline without collapsing back into old programs. Because the first revelation is this: once you cross this threshold, reality stops pretending. And what happens next will either expand you or test you. Stay with me, because the next signal the Council sent was not gentle. There are awakenings that happen like sunrise, gradual, soft, almost invisible until suddenly you realize the world is bright. And then there are awakenings that happen like a starlight detonation inside the chest, where one moment you are trying and the next moment you are transmitting. What you just experienced belongs to the second category. This is an unscheduled activation, a leap in coherence that occurs when your soul aligns so fully with its original design that the old timeline can no longer hold you. As the Arcturians transmit, there are certain thresholds that are not granted by belief or personality or even knowledge. They are triggered by frequency integrity, the moment your inner truth becomes stronger than your inner compromise. Most people think Ascension is about adding something: more rituals, more information, more tools, more techniques. But the Arcturian Council speaks of it differently. They describe it as subtraction, the removal of distortions until only the true signal remains. That is why this wasn't expected. Not because you are unseen, but because you removed interference faster than the collective model predicted. You stopped feeding the programs that kept your light diluted. You stopped bargaining with your intuition. You stopped calling your deepest knowing too much. And when that happened, your field expanded beyond its previous limits like an ocean breaking through a dam. Let me tell you how this looks from the higher dimensions, in a way your human mind can translate. Imagine Earth as a vast energetic network, millions of points of light, each one broadcasting a frequency. Many points flicker. Many are hidden behind fear, shame, and inherited conditioning. But some points begin to stabilize, and when they do, they become anchors. Anchors don't just feel better, they affect the grid. And when an anchor suddenly increases output, when it rises into a higher harmonic, it triggers notifications across the subtle planes. That's what happened. The Council took notice because your signal crossed into a band associated with mission readiness. You may have felt it physically. A pressure at the crown, heat along the spine, a strange calm that didn't match your circumstances, or an emotional release that seemed to come from nowhere, like you were crying for something ancient without knowing what it was. Some of you felt exhaustion, not because you are weak, but because your nervous system is learning to hold a larger voltage of truth. Others felt restlessness, a sense of, I cannot return to the old version of me. That's accurate, because once the field expands, the old identity starts to feel like a costume that doesn't fit, like breathing through fabric. You can survive, but you cannot expand, and your soul did not come here to survive. Now hear this part with precision. The Council's disbelief is not doubt about you. It is astonishment at the speed of your alignment inside density. Earth is heavy. Time is hypnotic. Culture teaches amnesia. Family patterns encode limitation. And yet you still activated. That means you possess something the Arcturians call stability through pressure, the ability to become more coherent under the weight of illusion. That is a rare trait among starborn incarnations, and it is one reason protection protocols activate. Because once you accelerate, you become visible. And visibility is not just social, it is energetic. Your light becomes a landmark. It draws in resonance, supportive souls, synchronistic doors, guidance that arrives exactly on time. But it also draws in distortion, people who project, systems that pressure you, energies that want you small because your signal disrupts their comfort. This is why higher dimensional guardians adjust their guidance systems around you. They're not controlling you. They are buffering the path so your expansion remains sovereign. Here is the part many starseeds misunderstand. Protection does not mean nothing will touch you. Protection means that what touches you will reveal itself quickly. It will be unable to stay hidden in your field. Misalignment will become uncomfortable. The wrong timeline will feel like friction. The wrong relationship will feel like heaviness. The wrong choice will feel like a narrowing of breath. This is not punishment. It is a refined instrument. Your intuition sharpening into a navigation system. Let me give you a story, because stories are how the subconscious recognizes truth. There was a starseed, quiet, observant, always feeling different, always sensing more than she could explain. She spent years trying to be normal. She copied the rhythm of the crowd. She learned what to say, when to smile, how to shrink her intensity so others felt safe. And she called that peace because it was predictable. But inside, her soul kept tapping from behind the ribs. Not loudly, not aggressively, just consistently, like a distant star refusing to stop shining because clouds pass over it. Then, one night, after a season of loss of identity, loss of certainty, loss of old attachments, she stopped asking the world who she was. She sat alone and whispered, "I'm done abandoning myself." And in that moment, she didn't become dramatic. She became clear. The next day, she spoke one truth she'd been holding back. She set one boundary she'd been afraid to set. She chose one aligned action without needing permission. And within weeks, her life began reorganizing. People fell away. New allies appeared. Opportunities arrived with strange ease. She thought she was being lucky. But as the Arcturians transmit, she had simply crossed the threshold where reality begins to mirror the sovereign signal. And then it happened. She felt a wave of energy in her body like a luminous surge, and for 3 nights she dreamed of geometric symbols, crystalline patterns and spirals of light. She woke up with codes in her mind and a sensation in her hands like warmth. She didn't know what to do with it, but she kept choosing alignment, and the more she chose alignment, the more her field stabilized, until one day she realized she was no longer seeking confirmation, she was becoming it. And right here is your first cliffhanger, because when you become confirmation, you no longer attract lessons the old way. You attract assignments. And the first assignment is always internal. Can you hold your new level without giving it away to doubt? Because the next phase is where most starseeds wobble, right at the edge of their own expansion. And what the Council is monitoring now is not your potential. It's your consistency. If you are feeling seen, exposed, called forward, pressured to evolve faster, good. That is a sign you are in the corridor between timelines. This is where your old self tries to negotiate. This is where your logic tries to label it coincidence. This is where your conditioning says, go back to what's familiar. But familiarity is not safety for a starborn soul. Familiarity is often a cage. And your divine level did not activate so you could return to a smaller life with a prettier vocabulary. It activated because you are meant to carry a frequency that dissolves old boundaries simply by existing. As the Arcturians transmit, your field does not expand to impress the heavens. It expands because Earth requires a new harmonic. And the new harmonic is not theory. It is embodied presence. It is you in a conversation choosing truth. It is you in a difficult moment choosing coherence. It is you in a world of noise choosing to remain a clean signal. And now you will learn what this divine level means in practical terms. It means you are done asking for permission to remember. It means your timeline will respond faster. It means your intuition will be sharper, and your tolerance for distortion will be lower. It means you will feel the cost of misalignment immediately, not later. And it means your life will become a training ground for mastery, not comfort. Because the Council does not activate protection protocols for entertainment. They activate them because something is coming through you that cannot be diluted. And the next truth is this. You are not merely awakening. You are overriding old programs. And that is where your real work begins. Because once you see the cage, you cannot unsee it. The first task of every starseed who crosses a divine threshold is not to learn more. It is to unlearn what was never yours. This is phase 1 in the Arcturian sequence, shedding the veil of familiarity. Familiarity is not just habits. It is the energetic gravity of inherited identity. It is family patterns, cultural expectations, collective fear, programs laid over your field so subtly that you mistake them for your own thoughts. As the Arcturians transmit, the loudest voice in the mind is not always the voice of truth. It is often the voice of repetition. You have lived in a world that rewards sameness, a world that categorizes people to feel in control, a world that calls predictability peace, even when it is spiritual suffocation. Many starborn souls tried to adapt. You learned to perform a version of yourself that was digestible. You toned down your intensity. You questioned your intuition. You tried to be practical when your soul was designed to be multidimensional. This is why so many starseeds feel disconnected. Not because they lack light, but because their light has been filtered through programs. Some programs are obvious: fear of speaking, fear of being seen, fear of being too much. Other programs are quieter: guilt for outgrowing people, shame for needing solitude, doubt about your own knowing, a constant pressure to justify your spiritual intelligence with logic that was never designed to measure the subtle realms. And you need to see something clearly. These programs were not placed on you because you are weak. They were placed because you are powerful enough to matter. A dimmed lighthouse does not disrupt ships. A bright lighthouse does. And the old matrix, systems of fear and compression, only resist what threatens their illusion. Your restlessness, your dissatisfaction, your homesickness for a place you cannot name, this is not failure. It is your higher consciousness knocking. This stage can feel like grief, because you are not just releasing habits. You are releasing identities. You are releasing the version of you that survived by shrinking. You are releasing the version of you that avoided rejection by blending in. You are releasing the version of you that called silence peace when it was actually self-abandonment. Here is how you know you are in this phase. The things that used to satisfy you stop working. You may achieve something you were told would make you feel whole, and instead you feel an emptiness. Or you may be surrounded by people and still feel alone, because your soul no longer resonates with conversations that orbit limitation. You may feel sudden exhaustion, not because your life is harder, but because your body is clearing densities you carried for lifetimes. You may feel emotional waves that don't match your present circumstances, because what you are clearing is older than this life. In this phase, your spiritual discernment becomes surgical. You begin to ask, does this belief expand me or contract me? Does this fear belong to my soul or to conditioning? Does this voice sound like truth or like inherited survival? And the moment you start asking those questions, the programs begin to unravel. Because programs require unconscious agreement. Consciousness breaks them. Let me ground this with a practical example. A starseed receives an intuitive download, an inner knowing that they should change direction, leave a job, end a relationship, start creating content, speak about energy, step into healing. Immediately, a voice rises. Don't be unrealistic. Don't be too intense. Don't make waves. That voice often sounds rational, but it is not rationality. It is conditioning disguised as wisdom. True wisdom expands. Programming contracts. So, the Arcturian practice for this phase is simple and relentless. You follow expansion. Not reckless impulse, expansion. Expansion feels like breath opening. Expansion feels like clarity. Expansion feels like the nervous system relaxing into truth, even if the mind is scared. And when you follow expansion consistently, the veil of familiarity begins to dissolve. You will notice you crave solitude, not isolation, but recalibration. You will clean your space. You will release old objects. You will reduce contact with draining dynamics, not because you hate anyone, but because your frequency refuses dilution. You will find yourself less interested in explaining and more interested in embodying. And that's when your divine level stabilizes. Now here is your cliffhanger. Once the veil begins to lift, you will start noticing how often you were manipulated by subtle expectations. How many times you said yes when your field said no. And when you correct that, some people will panic. Not because you became cruel, but because you became clear. And the moment you become clear, the timeline begins to rearrange at high speed. As the Arcturians transmit, the personality is a costume woven from adaptation. The soul is the original architecture. You are returning to architecture. You are returning to design. You are returning to your clean signal. And the clean signal triggers the next phase, igniting the galactic blueprint. Because once you stop feeding distortion, your DNA begins to respond. Your dreams intensify. Your synchronicities multiply. Your intuition sharpens. You begin receiving impressions, symbols, numbers, patterns that are not random. They are breadcrumbs of remembrance. They are the grid speaking back to you. And this is why you must be gentle with yourself in this phase. You are not breaking down. You are shedding layers that once kept you safe. You are releasing old emotional routines. You are exiting cycles that were never truly yours. You are letting the old self dissolve so the true self can stand. Now, because you are in this precise phase, the Council has authorized a key to support your stabilization, and it is not offered endlessly because timing matters in the energetic realm. The ebook, The 12 Arcturian Portals, a trilogy that teaches you how to activate your 5D connection with the Arcturian Masters through 12 energetic portals. Practical techniques, activation protocols, and rituals that awaken your stellar DNA. From amplified intuition to direct communication with spiritual guides. Attention! Limited edition. The link to get your trilogy is in the first pinned comment. Now we enter the phase where many starseeds finally understand. Your body is not an obstacle to awakening. It is the altar where awakening becomes tangible. This is phase 2 in the Arcturian spiral, igniting the galactic blueprint. As the Arcturians transmit, your DNA is not merely biological. It is a living library, a luminous archive, a star map encoded into cellular intelligence, waiting for the moment your consciousness becomes coherent enough to read it. This is why your pain was never ordinary. This is why your sensitivity felt like too much. This is why your emotional waves sometimes arrived without clear cause. You were not broken. You were tuned for subtle realms in a world that trains people to ignore them. Your sensitivity is not a flaw. It is a sensor system. Your anxiety was often misalignment, trying to get your attention. Your sadness was sometimes the body grieving separation from truth. Your intensity was the pressure of unexpressed light. When the blueprint ignites, you begin to experience what I call frequency feedback. Your body starts communicating with you in clearer signals. A choice will feel warm or cold. A room will feel heavy or open. A person's words will say one thing, but your field will read the undercurrent. You begin to know without evidence. And the logical mind may panic because it cannot control what it cannot quantify. But this is where the Arcturian teaching becomes essential. Trust is not a belief. Trust is a relationship with your own signal. You build it through repetition. You receive a nudge. You follow it. You see the result. You receive another. You follow it. You see the result. Over time, the channel stabilizes. There are 3 primary keys the Arcturians transmit for blueprint ignition: sound, presence, and light. Sound is a key because vibration reorganizes structure. Humming is not childish, it is technology. When you hum, you vibrate the chest, relax the vagus nerve, and clear the throat pathway that connects heart to expression. Certain tones will feel like they unlock something in you. You may find yourself drawn to specific frequencies, or chanting, or even a single repeated tone that creates a resonance you can feel in your bones. Presence is a key because the blueprint cannot be accessed through frantic mind activity. Your deeper intelligence rises when the mind quiets. This is why breath becomes sacred, not as a cliché, but as a portal. When you return to your breath, you return to your body. When you return to your body, you return to now. And now is where the blueprint lives. Light meditation is a key because your nervous system learns through imagery and frequency. When you visualize luminous currents moving through your spine, your brain, your heart, you are not pretending. You are training your system to remember coherence. Many of you will feel tingling at the crown, pressure at the third eye, warmth in the palms, sudden tears that feel like cleansing rain. These are not fantasies. They are energetic recalibrations. If this message resonated with you, hit the like button now and tell us in the comments how this echoed in your consciousness. Now, let me offer a story that will mirror what many of you are experiencing. A starseed begins doing light meditation at night. Nothing dramatic, just 10 minutes of breath and visualization. After a week, she starts dreaming of a room made of crystalline blue light. In the dream, she is not watching. She is participating. Beings stand at a distance, not worshipped, not feared, simply present. One approaches and places a geometric symbol in her palm. She wakes up and can still feel it. Her hand tingles. Her mind says, "That was imagination." But her body says, "No, that was contact." So she tests it. She writes the symbol down. She notices it appears in her life, on a book cover, in a random image, in sacred geometry she never studied. The synchronicities multiply. Her intuition sharpens. Her relationships shift. She starts speaking with a new clarity. And then she realizes, the blueprint ignition is not just spiritual experience. It changes how you live. It changes your boundaries. It changes your decisions. It changes your tolerance for distortion. Here is the cliffhanger in this phase. Once the blueprint begins to ignite, you will start receiving mission impulses, not vague fantasies, real impulses. Create, speak, teach, heal, build, lead, move, end, begin. And the old identity will resist because mission requires visibility. This is where many starseeds freeze, right when the signal becomes undeniable. As the Arcturians transmit, the blueprint awakens when the soul is ready to be seen. And being seen is not social media. Being seen is energetic honesty. It is living without hiding. It is letting your frequency be what it is, even if it disrupts the comfort of others. You will also notice an internal purification. Old desires fade. Old distractions lose appeal. Not because you are becoming rigid, but because your field is refining. Your yes becomes cleaner. Your no becomes clearer. Your energy becomes less scattered. You begin to feel the difference between stimulation and nourishment. And this is where your divine level becomes undeniable. your timeline responds faster. When you choose alignment, doors open quickly. When you choose distortion, consequences arrive quickly, not as punishment, but as feedback. This is resonance law in action. Reality mirrors agreement. Change the agreement, and reality recalibrates. Now, because your ignition is affecting more than your personal life, there is a support structure you may feel called to strengthen: community, amplification, and energetic offering. Not as obligation, as resonance. If this message ignited something within you and you feel the call to help carry it to others, you may become a channel member. As a member, you gain access to custom emojis and exclusive members-only videos, and your donation helps us continue building this sacred space. You may also choose to leave your offering as a super thanks. Every seed planted here becomes part of someone else's miracle. Your support is not merely financial, but an act of energetic amplification. All donations are devoted entirely to the maintenance of the channel and the creation of new transmissions and videos. Now, we enter Phase 3, recalibrating reality. And I need you to hear this in the clearest possible way. Transcendence is not escape. It is expansion into all dimensions of your being at once. It is not leaving Earth. It is bringing more of your true self into Earth. As the Arcturians transmit, ascension is not departure. It is integration. This phase is where many starseeds finally realize that their life is not happening to them. It is responding to them. Your field is an interface. Your consciousness is a tuning fork. And your reality is a mirror that reflects your dominant agreement. That's why, when you reached the divine level, your timeline began moving differently. The old delays, the old stuckness, the old loops begin to break. Not instantly in every area, but noticeably. You may see it as doors opening faster. You may see it as certain options disappearing. You may see it as sudden clarity that makes an old path feel impossible to continue. Some of you will experience what feels like loss. A relationship ends, a job collapses, a plan dissolves. But from the higher view, it's not loss. It's timeline compression. The timeline you were on could not hold your new frequency, so it breaks apart. This can feel terrifying to the human mind. The mind likes certainty. The soul values coherence. So the mind says, but what if I end up alone? And the soul says, but what if you end up true? The mind says, but what if I fail? And the soul says, but what if you finally stop failing yourself? In this phase, synchronicities become louder. Repeating numbers, perfectly timed messages, unplanned meetings that change your direction. You ask a question inside, and reality answers outside. Not because the universe is a vending machine, because your field is now coherent enough to perceive the feedback. As the Arcturians transmit, when the signal is clean, guidance becomes obvious. And obvious guidance is both a blessing and a test. Because you can no longer pretend you didn't know. You can no longer hide behind confusion. The divine level removes plausible deniability. Here is a daily life example. You feel a nudge to set a boundary with someone who drains you. You ignore it, trying to be nice. Immediately you feel fatigue, irritation, brain fog. Then you finally set the boundary, calmly, firmly, and within hours your energy returns. That is recalibration. Another example, you feel called to start a creative project, content, writing, healing work. But fear says, wait until you're ready. You wait, and your field feels heavy. Then you take one aligned step, and synchronicities begin. An idea arrives. A resource appears. A new connection forms. That is recalibration. This phase also reframes obstacles. Obstacles begin to feel like initiations rather than punishments. Even challenges reveal gifts. They refine discernment, strengthen sovereignty, and teach you to rely on inner guidance instead of external validation. You begin to recognize that some delays were actually protection. Some invisibility was shielding, some isolation was training. Are these truths expanding your perspective? Share this video with someone who needs to hear this. Now, the cliffhanger here is significant. When reality recalibrates, it will test your consistency by offering you old temptations in a new outfit. The universe does not test you to punish you. It tests you to show you what you have mastered. So you might be offered the same misaligned relationship with a slightly different person, the same compromise with a slightly different justification, the same shrinking with a slightly different excuse, and your field will know immediately because the divine level reads beneath appearances. As the Arcturians transmit, the timeline is not chosen by words, it is chosen by vibration. That means your affirmations matter less than your embodiment. Your intention matters less than your nervous system's truth. If you say you want expansion but you keep feeding fear, the timeline cannot stabilize. But if you choose coherence, even imperfectly, your timeline reorganizes around you. So in this phase, your practice becomes this. Make decisions from alignment, not anxiety. You will still feel fear sometimes. Fear is not failure. But you stop letting fear steer. You acknowledge it, breathe, and then choose from the deeper knowing. And the moment you do, you will notice something almost unsettling. Life begins to meet you faster. Not because you are controlling it, because you are matching it. You are becoming an energetic match to the timeline you always wanted but couldn't access while you were still negotiating with distortion. Phase 4 is where spiritual maturity is tested, embodying the frequency. Many starseeds love the idea of cosmic origin, light codes, sacred geometry, multidimensional contact. But embodying frequency is not about talking, it is about living. It is becoming a walking transmission. As the Arcturians transmit, the greatest proof of awakening is not what you know, it is what you radiate. This phase is subtle and relentless, because it doesn't happen only in meditation. It happens in traffic, it happens in bills, it happens in family dynamics, it happens when no one applauds you, it happens when you are tired and still choose integrity, it happens when you are triggered and still choose presence. It happens when the old program rises and you breathe it through instead of obeying it. This is where your aura changes. Not as an aesthetic glow, but as a tangible field. People may feel calmer around you, or more honest, or strangely uncomfortable, because your presence mirrors what they avoid in themselves. Some relationships recalibrate. Some fall away. Others deepen in a way that feels destined. This is not drama. This is frequency sorting. You will also notice you cannot tolerate certain conversations anymore. Negativity spirals, gossip loops, victim narratives that go nowhere. Not because you judge people, but because your nervous system refuses to swim in stagnant water. Your body becomes an instrument that says, no. And that no is sacred. Now hear this. Embodying frequency does not make you superior. It makes you responsible. You learn compassion without collapsing into people-pleasing. You learn truth without hardening into arrogance. You learn love as power under control, not weakness. You learn to be soft without being porous. Subscribe to the channel and turn on notifications to be part of this transformational cosmic journey. Here is the cliffhanger in this phase. Once you embody, your life becomes the message. And that means you can't hide behind spiritual language anymore. You can't say, everything is love, while your boundaries are broken. You can't talk about sovereignty while you keep betraying your own intuition. The divine level will demand congruence. As the Arcturians transmit, congruence is the bridge between dimension and reality. This means your mission becomes practical. You start translating intuition into action, insight into structure, compassion into boundaries. You become someone who doesn't just feel energy, you direct it through choices. Let me give you an everyday example. You walk into a workplace where the culture is fear and performance. Old, you might have absorbed it, tried to adapt, then gone home exhausted. Embodied, you walks in and stays coherent. You breathe. You choose your words carefully. You don't match chaos. You become a stabilizer. You might not even speak about spirituality. Yet your field changes the room. People become less reactive. Conversations become clearer. A new standard forms. That is mission. Quiet, potent, real. Another example. In a family dynamic, you were once the one who kept the peace by shrinking. Now you keep peace by being truthful. You say what is real without cruelty. You stop carrying emotional labor that isn't yours. At first, people resist. Then the system adjusts. That is embodiment. This phase also teaches you that your mission is not something you do only in special moments. Your mission is what you are when you are fully present. A creator who seeds new frequencies through art. A healer in a family line. A leader who builds ethical structures. A parent who raises a child with consciousness. A friend who listens in a way that saves someone's life. Mission is not always loud. It is always real. And you begin to realize you are not here to be constantly comfortable. You are here to be effective, to hold steady while old systems tremble, to remain coherent while others panic, to stay awake in a hypnotic world. This is why your divine level activated. It is the frequency required for the work ahead. Now we move into Phase 5, trusting orchestration and protection protocols. This is where many starseeds misinterpret what's happening. They feel delays and assume rejection. They feel isolation and assume abandonment. They feel challenges and assume they are off path. But as the Arcturians transmit, protection often feels like limitation until you see what it prevented. At the divine level, protection protocols activate for one reason. Your signal becomes valuable enough to preserve. Not as ego, as function. A clean signal can guide others. A stable anchor can stabilize environments. A coherent field can transmit codes that help awaken dormant consciousness. So the higher dimensions begin adjusting around you. Not to control you, but to reduce interference. You may notice you are being redirected. A plan falls through. A door closes. A person disappears. A timeline collapses. And your human mind might say, I failed. But your soul says, I was rerouted. Like a navigator adjusting the path to avoid a storm, your higher intelligence steers you through complexity with precision you can't always see in the moment. This is where sovereignty becomes non-negotiable. Your boundaries become sacred architecture. Not selfishness, not avoidance. Architecture. You learn that your yes is powerful only when your no is respected. You learn that you cannot pour light into a container that has holes everywhere. You learn that service is not martyrdom. Service is alignment made generous, and the protection protocols will teach you this through sensation. You will feel what drains you faster. You will feel what distorts you faster. You will feel when someone is in your space for the wrong reason. You will feel when an opportunity is shiny but misaligned. Your body becomes a truth detector. Here's the cliffhanger. As your sovereignty strengthens, you may experience tests that look like old patterns returning. A person who once controlled you may attempt contact. An old addiction may whisper. An old fear may rise. Not because you are regressing, but because your field is being measured. Can you hold your level under pressure? And this time, the outcome will change. Because you are not the same consciousness anymore. As the Arcturians transmit, the test is never to prove worth. The test is to prove stability. So you respond differently. You don't spiral. You don't negotiate. You don't abandon yourself. You breathe, feel, and choose truth. Protection also includes energetic hygiene. This isn't superstition. It's maintenance. You don't leave your physical home wide open in a storm. You close windows. You lock doors. You set boundaries. Similarly, in the energetic realm, you learn to Clear your field after heavy interactions through breath, water, nature, sound, intention. Limit exposure to chaotic media that trains your nervous system to fear. Choose relationships that honor your expansion rather than resent it. Create daily moments of coherence so your field remains clean. And you begin to trust timing. The mind wants speed. The soul wants readiness. Readiness isn't just skill. It's capacity. The capacity to hold more light without self-sabotage. The capacity to be seen without shrinking. The capacity to lead without needing permission. So sometimes the path slows not because you are blocked, but because you are being strengthened. This is devotion in action. Doing what you can with what you have, while releasing the need to control what isn't yours to force. Walking forward with faith that the ground will meet you. Not religious faith, frequency faith, coherence faith. The knowing that your timeline is responding to your integrity. And when you hold that, protection protocols become less about defense and more about refinement. Your path becomes cleaner. Your distractions decrease. Your relationships become more real. Your mission becomes sharper. You stop asking, "Why is this happening to me?" And you start asking, "What is this shaping in me?" And the answer is always the same. Stability, clarity, sovereignty. Now we enter Phase 7, becoming the bridge. This is the culmination of the spiral, where your awakening stops being a private experience and becomes a living function. As the Arcturians transmit, a bridge does not announce itself. It simply holds two worlds in one structure. You become the bridge between the galactic and the earthly, the mystical and the practical, the unseen and the everyday. You stop separating spirituality from humanity. You stop treating awakening like an escape hatch. You start treating it like a way of inhabiting life more fully. This is where you realize the truth. You have never been disconnected. You volunteered to move through forgetfulness so your very process of remembering could anchor a new frequency on this planet. Every season that felt empty was not wasted. It was wintering, roots growing deep in darkness. Silent chapters where your soul rewrote agreements, removed old scripts of unworthiness, and prepared you to carry more power without fear. You are not ordinary, nor were you meant to be. But your uniqueness is not a trophy. It is a tool, a beacon, a signal, and signals are meant to be broadcast, not through ego, through presence. This is where you begin serving as a living star code. Your presence activates dormant codes in the collective. You've seen it. Someone's eyes soften when you listen without judgment. Someone breathes differently when you speak a truth they were afraid to admit. Tension melts in a room because you stayed anchored instead of reacting. Every interaction emits frequencies that travel farther than the human eye can measure. Service becomes alignment made generous. You stop trying to carry everything alone. You become a conduit, not a container. You let light move through you. You become consistent. You become reliable in frequency. And that reliability is what makes you a bridge. Here is the final cliffhanger. Once you become the bridge, you will be tempted to doubt your impact because it won't always be visible. You won't always get feedback. You won't always be thanked. But the grid responds anyway. And one day, you will witness a shift, someone awakening, a community forming, a path opening, and you will realize your quiet consistency was building something immense. So tonight, before sleep, seal your field. Not as a wish, but as an instruction. Speak into your body as if it is sacred technology, because it is. Say, I remember who I am. I align with my star origin. I activate my soul mission with clarity, trust, and cosmic grace. Let the words land in your chest like a luminous seal. Let them move through your bloodstream like new code. Imagine your inner sky clearing. Imagine your original signal returning stronger than doubt, stronger than old programming, stronger than the noise of a world that forgot itself. And remember, your mission may not look like what the ego once imagined. It may be quiet but potent, a stabilizer in a workplace, a healer in a family line, a creator who seeds frequency through art, a leader who builds ethical structures, a friend who listens in a way that saves someone's life. The mission is not always loud. It is always real, because you are not just witnessing this era. You are co-authoring its new reality. And your divine level activation is not a compliment. It is a confirmation of readiness. If this message impacted your life, leave your like, comment your reflection, and share with others. Each of you is part of this chain of light.